Thank the chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. It's interesting that my friends on the other side like to use the same excuse that I heard as a judge down in Texas. I would have a person come to court charged with theft, and occasionally they would say, well, Judge, everybody steals in Texas. Give me a break. And the defense being, well, other people do it, so let me go. And you know, I'm a little tired of hearing it. George Bush did it, so it's okay for the president to do it. This issue is not about who does it. It's what position violates the Constitution and overreach. And we can go all the way back to Andrew Jackson, if you want to. I mean, some historians think that his invasion into Spanish territory of Florida to kill the Seminoles, who were raiding my friend Mr. Johnson's now home state of Georgia, that executive action was illegal because the president didn't get authority from Congress. Andrew Jackson also, when Texas was a country, and some say it still is, tomorrow's Texas Independence Day, in case you're wondering, gentlemen, 180 years. Texas is an independent country. Took Congress forever to decide whether or not to recognize Texas as a country. Andrew Jackson said, sure, I recognize them. They're an independent country. And there was debate about whether or not that was legal or not. So executive overreach has been debated a long time. And in my opinion, Congress just sits back and lets it happen. All of you have probably memorized the Constitution. And the way I read it, the Article 1, Section 1, the first word is all. All legislative powers are granted shall be vested in Congress of the United States. It does not say all legislative powers are granted and vested in Congress of the United States unless Congress fails to act. Then the president can pass his own legislation. There's no exception clause. It's the word all. Framers, Madison, probably had a good reason for putting the first word in the first article, all legislative power. The question has been, Congress sometimes doesn't use its authority. Does that give the president the authority to say, okay, I'm going to make my own rules? Probably not. I mean, historically, the way I understand the Constitution was written, Article 1 deals with the legislative branch of government because it was supposed to be the most powerful. Then Article 2 deals with the executive branch. And the Article 3 deals with the judiciary, which was really supposed to be the weakest branch of government. I think as a practical matter today in 2016, the judiciary is the strongest branch of government, because they make laws too, and then you got the president and you got the legislative branch, which basically is very weak because we don't do a lot. And we have brought some of this on ourselves because when the lawmaking authority comes around, we decide to make some bureaucracy to enforce that law. Some of those bureaucracies are legislative, some of those are done by the administration. We tell them to go out and make that law happen, and then we criticize the bureaucrats for doing the job that we told them to do because we won't do it. So I say all that to say, is this, do you agree, Mr. Postal, I'll ask you this question, do you agree or not, failure of Congress to act, and failure to act really is an action, failure to deal with gun violence is an action by Congress. They've made their decision. We've made our decision. But is there an exception clause in the Constitution that gives the executive the right to go ahead and go it his way, like Burger King, have it your way because those legislators, those members of Congress, they don't act?
There's nothing in Article 2 of the Constitution that gives the president the power to make law. And that's because of the reasons you've just indicated. Article 1 gives all of the legislative powers to Congress. So any excuse that relies upon Congress's inaction can't be used to justify the granting of a new power or the assuming of a new power by the president. So if Congress doesn't act, there is no law to execute.
Even if the action by the president is a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's important to separate results and policy from process. And a lot of the comments this morning and conversation is centered around, if you insist upon this sort of process, you might jeopardize the kinds of results we want. But good process is important in and of itself, especially a process that says we are going to rule ourselves through our own elected representatives in the legislative branch. So regardless of the outcomes we produce, it would be a good idea for us to preserve the principle that our elected representatives make the law.